Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cards 2020 World Championship Grand Finals. My name is Ólafur Steinarsson, also known as Olikrummi, and I will be your host today. But no show would be complete without our player experts. And joining us here today are Innocent Bubbles, Scout, and Blue Blast. How are you guys doing today?
Hello, we're good. How are you?
Yeah, doing great.
You're still muted, Lou.
Thank you for that. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Ollie.
Well, welcome to you guys. I want to give everybody at home a little bit of insight into how technically complex this broadcast is. Right now, we are getting casters from Florida, Minneapolis, and the United Kingdom, and me in Iceland. We have 3 players that are streaming their gameplay signal from China, one that is remote connecting to a machine in Iceland and getting the gameplay into here. All of this is done because we love to bring you guys tournaments, and we just can't wait for the spectator mode to do the World Championship. We just want to do it now. So I apologize if there are any technical issues. We will iron them out today and get them all sorted for tomorrow. But for now, let's get to know our casters here a little bit. Bubbles, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Bubbles. I fell in love in card games with Magic the Gathering, and then at some point I discovered cards, and I've been addicted ever since. I should probably try and find help because I love this game so much.
All right, what about you, Scout?
Yeah, I've been playing this game for a couple years. Joined in the late alpha. Been streaming it a lot. Been doing a lot of theory crafting for the game, and I just love it. You know, I come from the World War II scene, the World War II game scene, and it's been pretty great. It's been fun.
Awesome. And finally, Blue, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Ollie. So I got my start in competitive card games with Magic the Gathering in about 2017, and I competed on the Grand Prix circuit for a couple years, traveling the country to make each and every tournament. And then I discovered Cards in August of 2019 and just fell in love with the game, stole my heart and my mind. And I've top forward every Officer Club Championship there's been since its beginning, with a victory in one. And I'm also coming off my season 20 win, and I am just beyond thrilled to be here.
Wait, that was your first season win, right?
That was my first ever season win, season 20.
Yeah, but you've come in second a few times, right?
Absolutely, I have. Yeah, very close several times.
Yeah, I get you. Well, I'm here in the bunker in Iceland. I don't know, maybe we can get the wide shot up so you guys can see how awesome this set is. I am so excited to be back in the bunker, man. I absolutely love this. Hello, Mr. President. Yes, bring me reinforcements. The bunker is our staple here for the World Championship. Well, I wish the players could be sitting on this table facing each other and playing right in front of our very eyes, but unfortunately, due to COVID-19, that is not possible. So we will have to do it all digitally. But before we go and head on into the action, let's learn a little bit more about where Cards comes from. How was it designed, and how do we get from idea to where we are here today? I'll hand it over to Guðmundur Kristjánsson, the creative director of 1939 Games.
I'm Guðmundur Kristjánsson. I'm the creative director and co-founder of 1939 Games. So Cards, it has a bit of a long backstory. I mean, I think it all started with these little plastic soldiers. When I was a kid, I used to have hundreds and thousands of these little guys. And they played out epic battles, of course. Me and my friends and cousins were playing with plastic, these model kits and things like that. And so at a very early age, I got very interested in World War II through that initially. But then also through board games and just comics and things like that. I was always really fascinated about World War II. Even if it's not the finest hour of human history, there's a lot of there's something so fascinating about the scale of the struggle and all the technology and you know, the different strategies of the different nations and all that. It just speaks to me in some way. So I started playing card games when I was pretty old. I was probably around, you know, 21 or something like that. When a friend of mine showed me Magic the Gathering for the first time, I thought I was a really cool guy at the time, and you know, was mostly, you know, just partying with my friends and you know, drinking a bit. And I thought this looked really nerdy to begin with. But then I completely got sucked into it. We were playing a lot of Magic, and of course I spent, you know, all my little money I had at the time on buying booster packs. And but I really loved Magic from the get-go. How really simple the kind of core mechanics of Magic are, how easy it is to learn. Another thing also which I really like, the combination of, you know, artwork and the game mechanics, how it kind of fuels your imagination, you know, the pictures on the cards, even if it's, you know, just like in our game, it's basically a really simple numbers game, if you will. But with the context and the artwork and all that stuff and the visual effects, then it inspires your imagination. It becomes something much more, you know, much like when I was playing with, you know, these little plastic soldiers when I was a kid. You know, they were, of course, not you know, plastic anymore when you have set up a giant battle and you are playing around with them. You know, it's all about the imagination. So the inspiration behind cards definitely comes from a lifelong interest in World War II, first and foremost, but also in card games and board games and strategy games. The strategy and board games I played, specifically the war games, were like Panzer Blitz and Panzer Leader. There were hexagon games with you know, tons of counters all over the map. Flat Top was one that me and a cousin of mine played a lot, which is a aircraft carrier, also counter hexagon game. But then also I've played tons of Axis and Allies and Risk, of course, which is a bit the mother of all grand scale strategy games. So Axis and Allies is a fantastic strategy game, really grand scale strategy game, pretty simple and easy to get into. So I played probably thousands of hours with my friends of Axis and Allies. So basically you're playing the 5 major powers of World War II. The war starts at a certain period in the war, the beginning of the war, and then you can try to, you know, alter history by moving your military units around the board, the world map. So it's actually a pretty historically accurate game. But what me and some friends of mine did very early on, we started modding Axis and Allies, and I think we actually played a lot more the modded versions, and they were not as historically accurate. There we were kind of trying to get the replay value out of the game by keeping some of the core mechanics, but completely changing the starting positions, and you know, everyone was playing against each other, so the traditional lines of Axis and Allies were not really there anymore. And then there was a lot of strategy and alliances were made and backstabbing and things like that. Yeah, maybe, you know, modding this game was probably one of the first kind of attempts to dabble a little bit with game design. It started kind of with I was working at a gaming studio in Iceland called CCP at the time, makers of EVE Online, and by far the biggest gaming company in Iceland. I had not been playing card games for, you know, 10 or 15 years at the time, but some co-workers, we were playing Magic at lunchtime, and so I started dabbling around with Magic a little bit. And then I just thought to myself, there must be a World War II card game out there, and I just started looking for it, started browsing online, and didn't really find anything. It didn't seem like anyone had made a serious attempt of making a World War II collectible card game, which I think was strange, because I think immediately, when I think of it, it's a match made in heaven. So that was where the idea came from first, and then it was pretty clear To me, that I wanted somehow to take the essence of a traditional collectible card game, like Magic and those types of games, but fuse it with elements from these strategy and war games and board games that I've been playing since I was a kid and also really loved. Yeah, so there are some core principles that are inherited from the tabletop games. We knew we wanted to include some core war elements like movement, range, different behavior of different military unit types, and maybe some of the logistics of warfare. So those are the main innovations that we bring to the card game. They are represented mainly around the concept of the front line, which is a line in the middle of the board where you need to move your ground units to be able to attack the enemy. I think we kind of nailed those core principles pretty well there. In regards to the logistics, we also added a feature called operation cost. So not only do you have to pay resources to play out your units and give your orders and things like that, but you also have to use your resources to operate them. So to attack and move with your units, you have to pay some resources for that as well. And that is an attempt to reflect the logistics of, you have to supply your armies and reinforce them and all that, which is a big part of warfare. So of course, originally it was much more complicated. In our original designs, you had more lines, many more types of units and all kinds of special rules, 3 or 4 different types of resources. So we've kind of simplified the game a lot since then and just tried to keep it to the bare minimum where you get these kind of elements while the game is still a card game and it hasn't turned into a full-blown complicated board game. Well, of course, it's the only card game out there that is not set in a fantasy or sci-fi setting, at least if you're looking at the bigger games. It offers you a completely different kind of stimulation to your imagination. As for the context of World War II, as opposed to, elves and trolls and all this typical fantasy setting in card games, I think it is twofold. Maybe for me, maybe I was a little bit tired of the fantasy setting because it has been used so much in the context of card games especially. And we wanted to bring something else to the table, but it's also, like I've explained before, I've always had this deep passion for World War II. So I think that's a narrative that we are, I'm at least much better suited to kind of bring that world to life than a game in a fantasy setting. We try to, be historically accurate as we can. We've always said that, the fun of playing the game comes before anything else, and if we have to, bend historical accuracy a little bit for that, then we definitely always do that. As mentioned before, I was obsessed when I was a kid with these tiny little plastic soldiers and the plastic models from Matchbox and Airfix. So it was really interesting for us when we started thinking about the artwork for cards. We actually just started to contact some of these artists who did the box art of the model kits and things like that back in the 80s. So some of these artists are, really old today, but it was really a bit of a dream come true when some of them that are absolute legends in that field agreed to take part in this project with us. When designing cards, we knew from the start that we wanted to capture the feeling of sitting at an actual table playing cards. You should feel like you're playing cards against your opponent. So there's just something cozy, so to speak. Sitting at the table, playing cards against someone, it's just a nice feeling. I think people kind of identify with that. And since it is a card game, I think the most natural way of designing it is to try to make it feel like you're actually playing cards. Why would you have a card game that then feels like, a computer game? We have been focusing quite a lot on having the cards move a little bit like they would in an actual, if you're playing cards, and behaving in the hand, as they would. People should get this kind of nice feeling that they're actually sitting at the table playing a card game with someone else, because that's just, people like that. And for example, for me, it's like If you compare it to sitting at the table and playing chess with a friend, or playing chess online, it's a completely different feeling. And we wanted to try to be more on this kind of intimate playing cards, trying to capture that somehow.
Thank you for that, Gumi. That was an excerpt for a little documentary that we made for the Steam Tabletop Festival earlier this year. I really hope you guys enjoyed that look into kind of behind the scenes in cards a little bit. But now we want to move over to talking about the World Championship. And in a few moments, I would love to bring up the bracket so we can go over today's games along with the casters. But let's bring the casters back in here. Did you guys see that before? Or what did you think about that clip?
Yeah, I had not seen that before, but it was really interesting to see what really, sparked the creation of cards. I've been here a while, and that was new to me.
I saw
it was
live,
really amazing.
Go on, Cliff.
I would say it was just amazing to see what cards looked like in its very earliest form, and how far the game has come in, not really that long of a time. It's just really fun to see.
So when I watched that live, I went through pausing on a whole bunch of still frames just to read what the old cards used to do and just get a look into what the game used to be, like Blue was talking about. I just kept pausing it and reading them.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I personally loved it as well. I mean, I feel like it shows the passion as well that goes into this game, and we truly hope that is delivered out into the community. But now it's time for the World Championship. Let's bring up the brackets here and let's see what we're dealing with here today. We are going to be kicking it off with an epic matchup between Fenrir, our only back-to-back World Championship semifinalist, making it to the top 4 2 years in a row, which is insane, against CCMS 31, the player that, in the match against Spoos, floated like 48 credits or whatever in 4 turns and somehow won the game. Absolutely amazing. Looking forward to that one. Then we're going to be going into Darkness versus Yanju. But before we go into that first match, guys, I want to ask you a little bit. What do you think we're going to be seeing in that match? What type of decks are these guys bringing? What can we expect?
I think we can expect some mirror matches, to be totally honest. They're bringing some very, very similar decks. Like Fenrir, his German-Japan mid-range, it only has, I think, like a 2-3 card difference to CCMS's. The main difference being CCMS has Pursuit, and Fenrir took those out to put in Whirlwinds. They're both bringing tokens, they're both bringing Brit US, and then I believe their 4th deck is different, but 3 of their decks are identical, or almost identical.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting that they're bringing decks that are that close to each other.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of control matchups, which personally for me, I like seeing control matchups. It leads to a lot of mind games, and mind games are always fun to see. I think I saw maybe 1 or 2 aggro decks, and that's about it. Only one Feigned Retreat deck this time around coming from Darkness, and, we saw a lot of those during the top 16, and it's interesting to only see one of them now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen things change between every stage of the tournament so far, right? Like we've seen from the top 16 to the top 8, there were changes made to the decks. They were optimized. From the top 8 to top 4, we're now seeing it again, as well from the 128 to the top 16. So I'm super, super excited to see that. But before we go and head on into the match and we go and check out what these players are going to be bringing to the table in this match, we sat down and got to know CCMS a little bit better. So let's roll that interview. Hello everybody, my name is Olikrummi and I am here with one of our Chinese top 4 players in the World Championship. It is CCMS 31. How are you doing today, CCMS?
你今天怎么样啊？
今天刚从刚在实验室做完实验，现在在寝室休息一会儿。现在是正在读研究生，对。
Great. All right. I want to start. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What is your real name? Where are you from? How old are you? How did you get into card games?
现在问你几个问题，你叫什么名字？然后你今年多大了？然后来自哪里？就简单介绍一下自己。
好的，我的真名是尹浩，我是来自安徽省蚌埠市，现在是 正在上海。
Awesome. So when did you start playing cards?
你是什么时候玩 Cards 这个游戏的？
Cards 这个游戏我是从今年的5月3号才开始玩的，应该是我们4强选手当中开始玩的最晚的了，而且 Cards 是我就是真正玩的比较深入的第一个卡牌游戏。之前其实都是看别人玩，我自己是没太怎么玩过的。对。
Great. In cards, what is your favorite playstyle and what is your favorite nation?
在 Cards 中，你最喜欢玩的是哪一个国家？然后你最喜欢玩是哪一种风格的玩法？就是比如说是快攻或者是断水之类的。
我最喜欢玩的国家应该是英国，就是一方面是因为英国它感觉就是这个本身的就是防御能力比较强，就是对于快攻的抗性比较强，然后在后期也有很强大的能力。另一方面就是也是有许多各种各样的卡牌能玩的构筑种类也相对来说比较多，就是一个挺丰富多彩的一个国家。就是唯一的不足可能就是单局的游戏时间一般都相对比较长。Cards 上我比较喜欢玩的风格一般都是相对偏慢一点的，就是最喜欢玩的是应该算是跳费流，就是我觉得没有什么人可以拒绝像是那种大飞机和大坦克的快乐。就是除了跳费之外，就是像是断水，还有其他的一些别的慢速玩法我也都比较喜欢，因为就是感觉相比快攻来说需要更多的思考，而且就是打出的战术配合也相对来说要更多一些。
Awesome. So I want to ask you a little bit about different games. What is your favorite game of all time?
我们会聊一聊别的游戏。那么在你玩过所有的游戏之中，你最喜欢玩的游戏是什么呢？
我最一开始玩的游戏种类基本上都是就是即时战略类型的，就是像是红色警戒，还有像是英雄联，这些也都是就是比较经典的老游戏了。就是因为就是我是比较喜欢就是这样一些有战争元素的游戏，所以说这也是 Cards 非常吸引我的一个地方。最一开始来玩，其实主要不是因为看到有卡牌这个元素，主要就是看到这个二战这个元素，所以说觉得是做的非常有特色的一个地方。就是除了这方面，就是也玩一些比较佛系的游戏，像是欧洲卡车还有美国卡车模拟，就是单纯开车看看风景，感觉就也是平时忙碌之余一种不错的消遣。
Okay. Now, what do your friends and family think about you being one of the best in the world in cards? And what do they think about you being in the top 4 here and having the chance of winning $5,000, potentially becoming world champion?
你的家人还有朋友是怎么看待你现在成为 Cards 4强选手这件事情的？因为你有机会会获得冠军，甚至还有$5000的奖金。
其实就是我的就是身边的人知道就是这件事的人相对来说是不是太多的，就是因为确实 Cards 还是一个比较小众的游戏，就是本来就是感觉身边玩卡牌游戏的人就不多，况且就是如果要是想深入了解的话，也是相对有点硬核的，所以就是不太容易跟就是身边的就是很多人去进行解释。就是但是我身边就是特别亲近的人，还有就是家人，就是他们知道这件事都是感觉到非常的就是非常的惊讶，就是他们知道就是我就是玩的比较多，就是玩的不错，但是确实也没有想到能取得这么好的发挥，并且就是也是向我表示祝贺。对，当然就是能走到这一步，确实很大一部分原因也是运气好。对，就是至于就是后面就是4强赛能取得什么样的名次，这个现在也不好说。其实能走到这一步就已经很超出想象了。最开始的时候就只是想体验一下世锦赛来 来参与一下，就是反正无论之后能取得什么样的结果，我觉得这都是我继续深入的去玩这个游戏的一种很大程度上的鼓励。
Thank you for that, CCMS. It was super exciting to get to know our Chinese players a little bit better. Sometimes that language barrier can make things difficult, but I was really impressed with, the way he's kind of approaching the game and thinking about it, and how he was, thanking Spoos for that amazing game and giving us that context and all that kind of stuff. Super interesting. Did you guys learn anything new about CCMS there?
Oh,
From the
absolutely. I felt
brief
like I
interview-
could.
Go on, Scout.
I felt like I could relate to him a lot there, coming from the World War II background, playing a lot of just casual games to kind of chill out. Very, very humble and well-spoken man, I'd have to say.
I think from the brief interview we've seen of him now, I absolutely love him, and I hope we just continue to see more things from him, which make us love him more and more. He seems like absolutely lovely.
Yeah, we can bring up his player profile here so we can see it. He has been playing cards since, May this year. Favorite nation, Britain. Favorite card, To the Last Man. I mean, that's an awesome card, let's be real. He has put in 770 hours. That's quite the time investment in such a short time. And 16th is his best ladder result. But I think that also shows you that there isn't necessarily a correlation between ladder placement and how good of a player you are. It is very much a kind of a grind. Maybe you can give us some insight into that, Blue, but having both grinded the ladder quite a bit and played in some tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely understand intimately how much of a time commitment it is to play ladder. I just hit over like 2,600 hours in cards, and a big thing about kind of keep staying motivated to achieve higher and higher on ladder is just not to give up, and also taking breaks. Taking breaks, get something to eat and drink if you have a bad game, versus playing when you're not in a good headspace can definitely affect your overall win and loss, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's bring up Fenrir's player profile here. We did do an interview with Fenrir, but it is giving us some playback issues right now, but we will make sure to play it when we can. Fenrir, he is, I would say, one of our veterans here in the top four. Out of the four players here, Fenrir and Darkness both playing for a long time. Yanju and CCMS, a little bit of a newer kind of couple of players. They're also friends before the tournament, which I think is amazing. But we see him here. He's been playing it for well over a year. Favorite nation is Germany. Favorite card, Empire of the Sun. I mean, that is an awesome card, let's be real. Over 1,000 hours in playtime. And what I think is interesting here is when I asked him, what is your best ladder result? He basically told me, I haven't really been grinding ladder recently. I quite enjoy draft. I enjoy draft more. So he's spending most of his time playing draft, but because he was in the top 4 last year, he got invited to the top 128. So he just prepped really hard for that and brought, improved meta decks, which I think speaks, volumes to the skill that he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, coming from a draft player too, I feel like because he is a draft player, he's in that mindset that lets him so easily adapt to the meta here, where he's good at, picking up what's going on, having stuff thrown at him that he, may not be prepared for, and quickly being able to devise a plan and kind of build around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys watch the World Championship last year?
Absolutely.
I mean, Scout
Not
casted
live,
it,
but
but
they're on
like-
YouTube. Anyone who's not watched them,
Yes.
go onto the Cards channel and go watch them as soon as we're over today.
So I don't know if you remember, but we also did this small event, which was the Allegiance Draft Tournament, and that's actually the one that Fenrir ended up winning, right? So he ended up winning that tournament, which was, I think it was like we seeded 150 new cards into draft, and then had the guys do a blind draft, not knowing what the new cards were or what the synergies were and that kind of stuff. And he somehow was able to theory craft himself through that and build something to take on the other 3 best players in the world. So supremely impressed with Fenrir's abilities here.
Yeah, it seems to be he really has the ability to think on his feet and adapt, kind of like Scout was saying. Because really, especially too, when building decks for ladder, the meta can shift within a day. It's especially towards the beginning and towards the end of the seasons. For some reason, it's a very volatile time, and just to have that kind of that mental gymnastics and skills to be able to kind of fine-tune your decks like on a daily basis is definitely a huge key to success, I believe, when we're talking about ladder and tournament play.
Yeah. Well, we're almost ready to go and head on into match number 1. We're waiting on the final technical confirmation on CCMS's signal from China. These are 2 Chinese competitors. They're playing against each other. Because of the way that it can be kind of hard to get a stable signal out of China, they're both remotely connecting to a computer within China that is hooked up to a really powerful internet connection. And this introduces some points of failure, but we are getting that sorted out as soon as we can. So I think that's pretty good. But what I did just hear is that they banned each other's Soviet decks. So neither of them wants to face Soviets. So what does that leave?
Soviet decks are tokens, just to point out. Tokens was absolutely destroying recently in the Open tournament. So I'm curious if that was any influence on their sort of fear of token.
Yeah, I think with tokens, I think its major advantage is that it can just go on forever. I mean, it is a meat grinder of a deck. It essentially never runs out of units to play, and against a lot of like control decks and decks that want a 1-for-1 trade cards, excuse me, they don't really have a game against tokens where they're getting multiple units for 1 card and then buffing multiple units for 1 card. Just the amount of value that you get incrementally over the game will just run any control opponent out of resources, and then it'll lead yourself to victory. So I think that's a big reason why they banned each other's Soviet decks.
Yeah. I'm doing some live technical triaging here while we're in the set. It might be a World War II bunker, but we have the comforts of modern technology here hidden away to the sides. But before we head on into the match and while we get everything sorted, we do have another clip from that documentary we made where we kind of introduce each nation a little bit. So let's get to know Germany, both in World War II and in Cards.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about World War II and its main factions, the nations that fought in the war. Nazi Germany invaded Poland the 1st of September 1939. With relative ease, the German army, the Wehrmacht, destroyed Poland's fighting force. Britain and France declared war on Germany in order to protect Poland, but contrary to Poland's hopes, did not come to its aid in other ways. So Poland surrendered. Britain and France prepared themselves for war, thinking their defenses based on massive artillery and fortifications would hold any German attack. In just 2 weeks, in 1940, the Wehrmacht stormed through the defenses of both Belgium and France and pushed the British army into the sea. In only 6 weeks, France, which supposedly had the best army in Europe at the time, surrendered. The reason for this was a new style of combat with which the Wehrmacht fought. The essence of the new style was speed. The so-called blitzkrieg or lightning war was the combination of quick movement of troops and tanks and the massive use of air power to support the infantry. The Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, used as air support one of the most feared weapons in the war, the Stuka, an airplane that made a menacing sound when it dived in to bomb a target. German generals like Guderian and Manstein had perfected the use of swift panzer divisions and radio technology to be very maneuverable in the field. Meanwhile, their enemies set up defenses like they used to in World War I. The Blitzkrieg was to be so extremely effective that in a couple of years, the biggest part of mainland Europe had fallen to the Nazis. But to the Nazis, their main ideological enemy still stood in the form of communist Soviet Union. To deal with that enemy, the Germans gathered the largest invasion force ever in the history of warfare. At the western border of the Soviet Union, on the eve of battle, the Wehrmacht had around 3.5 million men, 3,350 tanks, and more than 5,300 aircraft. What started with Operation Barbarossa, which was the name used for the invasion, was to become one of the most horrifying wars of all time. The Germans gained the upper hand during the early stages of the invasion. They even made it as far as the outskirts of Moscow, the capital of the Soviet Union. But prolonged warfare wasn't to be Wehrmacht's strong suit. Even though they'd started to produce some very powerful and effective tanks like the Panther and the Tiger tanks, the Eastern Front would be too draining on manpower and the resources for the German army in the end. During that time, they also had to deal with Britain and later the US. The German Navy couldn't compete with the Royal Navy for the control of the seas, so they had to dive below the sea to fight with their famous U-boats and started to hunt merchant vessels and battleships alike. They also tried to bomb Britain into submission in the so-called Blitz. The Luftwaffe attacked Britain's industrial cities to try and destroy both Britain's fighting spirit and also their war industry. In 1943, the war was all but lost for the Germans, but still they used what they had to carry on the fight. They made new machinery, used their technological capabilities, and very disciplined soldiers to keep the war going for 2 years until they finally surrendered in 1945.
Germany were the aggressors in the war. They started the war by invading Poland in 1939, and they fought with a fierce fighting style called the Blitzkrieg that used speed in a way that it hadn't been used before, and absolutely decimated their enemies with swift infantry, airstrikes, and mobile tanks. And that's why in the game Cards, the Germans are represented with the aggressive archetype. It means that they have a lot of cheap units that can move aggressively and put pressure really early on. But in the war, they also had amazing pieces of technology and big, massive tanks and artillery weapons. So you can also wield mid to late game decks with Germany, focusing on big units like the Tiger or the Leopold. Now, if we look at some specific cards from Germany, one of the cards in the game is called Greif. And Greif was the command vehicle for Rommel in his North African campaign. And just like in North Africa, if you play Greif in Cards, your tanks now operate for one less in addition to you getting a new unit. So much like having the Desert Fox at the helm, you have much more strategic availability than you did before. So that card represents being led by Rommel and all the strategic options that afforded them in the Second World War. If you look at another German card, and this one is iconic, it's called Blitzkrieg. It's simple. It's an order you play that gives all your frontline units +3 attack. And much like in history, where the Germans could completely surprise their opponents with mobilizing a massive amount of forces to the front line and dealing swift, damaging blows, you can do that in Cards in the same way. Yep, that was a little bit insight into Germany, both in the Second World War as well as in Cards and how they play. But I have just received word that we have CCMS back online. So let's bring the casters here. Let's give the guys a green light to go challenge each other and get on into game number 1. I am so ready to get this going. What do you think? What are the decks that these guys are going to bring first? If you had those 3 decks remaining that they have, what would you bring into that first game?
Sorry about that. Honestly, if I was CCMS, I think I'd want to bring his Brit Air deck in game 1. I think it might be his most versatile of the 3 decks, because he does have this Awoken Giant and this Enemy Spotted for aggro decks, but he's also got the Avenger for big later game and slower decks. So I think for CCMS, I definitely want to see him bring the Brit Air deck in game 1.
What about on the other side?
Yeah, I agree with Bubbles there with CCMS. For Fenrir, I think if I would like to see him bring his Germany-Japan deck first because, again, it is a very toolbox sort of a deck. You have Flame Panzers to kill 1-drops. You have Nebelwerfers to ping 1 health units. You have Amphibious Assault to kill units that are 3 attack or less. And Sendai, you just have so much removal and like universally good against any sort of archetype that he could run into.
I think it's worth noting as well, in Fenrir's German-Japan mid-range deck, he does have 2 Whirlwinds, so if he predicts that CCMS is going to bring the Brit Air deck, he should definitely be bringing the Germany-Japan deck.
That would be a disastrous matchup, I think. Yeah, Brit Air's natural predator is Germany mid-range, 100%. So, but Brit Air has this advantage where it can...
I think we're ready. I think we're ready.
Let's hop into it.
Yeah, the challenge has been issued. The guys are picking their decks, but keep going. For this game, it's going to be Scout and Blue Blast casting, so go ahead, guys.
All right, Scout, this is it. The first game in the top 4 of the Cards World Championship. I'm excited. Are you excited?
Still muted, Scout.
Oh my god, I've been muted this whole time. Okay, so it's looking like it's exactly like we predicted, with Fenrir bringing his German-Japan kind of mid-range deck versus CCMS's British-US air deck.
Yeah, and what I was saying, what I was saying earlier before we cut to the match, that Brit Air's a main advantage they can have is if they can get out an early amount of air unit and then use something like a close air support to buff and just start hitting face immediately. They can just close out the game in like 3 or 4 turns.
Kind of an awkward hand by Fenrir here, I think. He has the 35T, not really an infantry to get the bonus effect from it. And a couple of the card draw units. However, it doesn't seem like CCMS has too much pressure coming out early on, so he can maybe get a few card draws off. With his,
yeah, like you said, super awkward hand. No Nashub, no Aradu as a 1-drop. I think his best play this turn, though, is to just get the card draw engine going with the 22nd infantry.
Absolutely. Okay. Maybe he doesn't want to lose his infantry now, because, you know, CCMS probably has an answer for it right away.
That's true. I mean, I'm okay with the Gladiator going down to 1 HP to trade with my 22. At least it's not a Swordfish. He would just get a free kill.
Those commandos, those #1 commandos are pretty threatening with the Death Touch coming out. Could absolutely devastate Takasagi and even this Panzer 3H here.
Now, thinking, what does Fenrir take here? You know, the Aradu is great at blocking bombers. The Amphibious Assault, also great to take out a unit once it's been hit with a close air support. That would net him a 2-for-1 win. But going with the Nashub, yeah, that's an interesting take. I suppose, do you think he's trying to build up for a big turn with Nashub plus some units with Blitz?
Maybe. However, it looks like he's about to go on the defensive, so he might not get a lot of Nashub value. Again, just such an awkward starting hand there.
So it's looking like...
Now, is it me or is CCMS's end a little delayed?
Delayed, yeah. It looks like CCMS's gameplay is pretty far behind for compared to Fenrir.
These 2 draw infantries in Fenrir's hand. Of course, we know they need the front line to work, so might not see too much value out of coming out of those anytime soon, unless Fenrir can find some way to get to the front line.
Yeah, and that encirclement is just a dead card in his hand as well. The Wrath Lightning, a huge tempo play. Sending back to Takasagi. It's going to cost Fenrir 4k to deploy that again. Plus now CCMS is a 3-5 body, which that's a great base to build into one big unit if he has close air support.
Looks like he's tempted to drop that comet. I'm not sure what he would do with it. Maybe go face, try to burn it out, or kill the bomber perhaps, or even try to take out that commando with this comet. It's not a lot of great options for Fenrir, I'd say.
I sort of like Comet, kill the Gladiator, and just start trying to get some incremental advantage here by using the ability that the Comet has to return to your own hand.
Mm-hmm.
So going for the Albacore, I think going for either one air unit was fine. I suppose taking out the Albacore allows him to play around Empire Strikes better.
It also lets his 2-1 infantry not die for free to the Albacore, because he was able to drop that out with the Nashib extra credits.
So again, Fenrir, what does he want to draw here to try to get him back into this? Because he looks like he's in he looks like he's very behind on the board right now.
Behind on the board, yes. He's still looking good on HQ hit points. Maybe might try to look for a Leopold.
Oh, there comes the second encirclement off the top.
Ooh.
Not what you want to see when you have no front line and also no units that cost 3 or less on board.
Not sure what he'll go for here. Maybe the Nebel to kill the Gladiator. Maybe Africa to look for some perhaps big swingy German elite.
Yeah, I kind of like Africa to look for Leopold. If he could get is it the Schwab, the 8-5 elite that retreats all air units? That would be good, I think, in this matchup.
Dropping the Arado, getting an Empire of the Sun. That could be very handy later on.
Yeah, but can he get to 10k? I'm just waiting for CCMS to deploy some sort of buff on either the Gladiator or the Lightning. And he has Fenrir kind of soft locked into his own support line. And CCMS just has free reign to smash on Fenrir's face until he does something about that number 10 commando in the front line.
Fortunately for Fenrir, not only does he have these 2 encirclements in hand, he doesn't really even have a unit to play encirclement on if he does take the front line.
Zero off the top, I think, is a good draw. You can play that, eliminate the commando finally. I think maybe, Fenrir might have to suicide his Comet into the Sexton just to get that 3-4 artillery off the board.
He may do that, or he may just wait until Empire of the Sun is ready to be played. I think he can possibly get away with that. I don't believe CCMS is running any kind of targeted order countermeasures.
Yeah, I mean, he has Ultra as countermeasure. Ultra is a great one. If you can Ultra the Empire of the Sun, I think that would just be game over for Fenrir.
But of course, due to some technical difficulties, unfortunately, we are unable to see his hand at the moment.
Yes. But we'll roll with it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice. All right, then I can butt into your casting. I like it. We're going to be having the players restart their streams after every match, so that should reduce some of this lag and the discrepancy in the timing between the streams. So we should be able to see both perspectives. Just that.
Okay, very cool.
Okay. Thank you.
A very powerful alliance coming out from CCMS. That's a very difficult board for Fenrir to deal with. Through a second Empire of the Sun. Maybe not what he wants here.
I mean, if the first one gets Ultra, he does have the second one as a follow-up, but look at this amount of damage. CCMS has lethal in 2 turns. He just trades the Gladiator with the Takasaki, hits for 10, holds up Ultra if he has it. Fenrir tries to Ultra the Sexton, and then it's just game over. That's 20 damage.
God. Feeling a little bad for Fenrir here. Kind of just the draw absolutely butchering him, I think. I don't think he had any really great options here.
And that's kind of the risk of running encirclement in a control deck. He's not a dedicated aggro, which I think benefits most from. Like, as you can see here, if you only draw your guards and removal, encirclement's going to be a dead card.
For sure. Nebelwerfer not really going to do anything here. He's going for the... well, that's just game, right?
Well, he can comment and trade.
Oh, no. He needs to kill one of the 5 attacks.
Now that is game. He does not have enough credits to comment and trade.
Yeah.
So is that going to be game 1?
Looks
like
CCMS
that's game 1
versus Fenrir.
Yep.
Pretty brutal hand for Fenrir.
And that is GG. Game 1 goes to CCMS over Fenrir.
Yep, and we are back. All right, I'm gonna go out ahead and say it. Not a ton of analysis maybe to be done here because we didn't see both hands and it was a little bit choppy, the connection, right? But out of what you guys did see, what did you take away from this one, and what do you feel like going into the next game where the winning deck is now banned? So what do you think we're going to see then?
So CCMS is left with his USA Brit deck, which is Ramp, and then his Germany-Japan deck, which is very, very similar to Fenrir's one. So we might see a mirror match, and we might see Fenrir even switch deck to his own Brit US one, which I believe is an air deck and looks very, very similar. He may switch to this one now.
You guys agree?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I'm not sure that German mid-range deck was doing Fenrir too many favors there, especially since there's not really any aggro from either player. Yeah, I feel like that German deck is really good into aggro and kind of does struggle more into more control-y decks, just because it is still kind of mid-range. It has tools, but maybe he was expecting more aggro matchups.
I think a lot of people might have been expecting more aggro matchups, but this is the World Championship, and I don't think we've seen the interview yet. But one of the players that we were talking to, they were saying, aggro decks, they're a lot of fun to play, but they don't necessarily have the highest win percentage, right? But they do win the fastest. So they're great for ladder, but they might not be as great in a tournament setting. So that's why we're probably seeing these guys bring more stuff like, Soviet tokens, bring more stuff like Brit Air, mid-range German, Japanese control, and so on. So what do you guys feel about the merit of aggressive decks in tournaments? Do you feel like they have a home there? Is it something you should always be bringing, or how do you think about that kind of from a high level tournament perspective, Blue?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the money by saying aggressive decks are king on ladder. Just the amount of games you can get in, win or lose, is miles ahead of any other sort of slower deck. Even if you lose a game, you can play 3 games and win 2 and lose 1 in the same time as a control deck can play 1 game and possibly win or lose, right? So that's why they're so efficient for ladder, and that's really what the game of ladder is your time efficiency. But in a tournament setting, there's no constraints on time, and you can really you can get as greedy as you really want, because you can expect to not be pressured so much by an aggressive deck. That's why we see what I think CCMS is going to bring next is his USA Britain deck, which is ramp, but it plays rescue mission, just a card you would never see play on ladder because it's so slow. But the card advantage that you can gain from saying having your Avenger rescue mission, right, is just absolutely insane in a tournament setting. So yeah, I think that's why these slower, more value-oriented decks are so popular in the high-level play, is just for that reason, because you want to get maximum value.
Yeah.
So if we assume it's going to be a USA Brit mirror match, the difference in these guys' decks is very, very small. CCMS is bringing a much more standard deck. He is running the rescue mission, like Blue said, but then Fenrir is also running a rescue mission, but somewhat more weird. He is running a pattern, and he is also running Death from Above. Not cards we see quite so often in ramp, but in the ramp mirror match may do a lot of work. Being able to drop your B-17 and attack with it in 1 turn can be absolutely devastating to play against. And then as for the Brit cards they're bringing, almost identical, but CCMS is bringing the Wrath Lightning. Might not be what he wants, again, if it's a mirror match, because there's all these B-17s and Avengers with deployment effects. You don't want to be reactivating those, let alone like a Blackwatch.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we have the players right now restarting their streams in the hopes that we can improve the signal quality and we can get them more in sync. So obviously, it's Murphy's Law here, guys. We've tested this extensively in the past 3 days. Everything's been fine. And then, we hit go live, go into the first game, and it lags. It's like one of those things, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But I think we're just waiting at the moment for going into that next match. I want to talk to you a little bit about. Let's use this time just while we have it to talk a little bit about Breakthrough, just because we have the time, right? For anybody that's wondering, Breakthrough is a new expansion coming to Cards on the 9th of December. The cards are already available, and through pre-orders, you're able to get some early packs, open them, and start playing with the new cards. Did you guys open packs any so far? What fun cards did you guys get?
I didn't get anything particularly exciting myself, but a friend of mine, he opened 1 pack and he got a Golden British Research Elite. So I've mostly been watching him play rather than play myself, just because it's so much fun to see when it works.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get my hands on a pre-order. However, I was on internal, so I've already played with all the cards, and I gotta say, absolutely love the research cards. They're a blast to play. They're so greedy, so ridiculously greedy, and I'm gonna get punished so hard playing ladder games with it, but it's fun. They're really fun.
Yeah, I think my most anticipated archetype for Breakthrough is going to be, I think, just the amount of new Alpine cards that are being added to the game, where we're really going to see that card pool expanded. And we see Alpines in Soviet, we see Alpines in Japan. Just the amount of decks that are going to explode just out of that, I think is going to be huge. I also want to test out the 34th Infantry combo with the 5/5. If it gets milled off the top of your deck, you have a free 5/5. I think that will be insane.
Did you open any packs? Did you get anything good?
I opened one pack, and I think I did receive the US card that costs 3K that gives stats equal to your operation cost, and then it sets it to 0.
Bolster the ranks. Hey,
Yes.
we're in, and look, it's a little bit better. It's definitely a little bit better.
Step by step.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I'm going to stop talking unless I need to apologize for the quality again later on. But Blue and Scout, why don't you go ahead and start shoutcasting this one?
All right.
Thanks for that, Ollie. Wow, this hand looking explosive for Fenrir here.
Yeah, looking a lot better than his last hand.
Yeah, way better. You have the explosive turn 1 15th Cavalry into the turn 2 Panzer 35T. But look at this top deck Arado. I think you have to play that. The Arado trades into the 15th Cavalry, and then next turn you can play your own cavalry, take the front line.
Looks like he's opting to get rid of the cavalry first. Probably does not want to potentially run into maybe a 15th Cavalry 35T, which CCMS didn't have, but I think this is the better play. Because you don't want to give CCMS that kind of tempo if you're in Fenrir's position, you know? You don't want him to give him any kind of chance to snowball, especially when what you need to do is also get that front line for your deck to work really well.
Yeah, definitely. You are right about that. If CCMS does have that turn 2 35T, that is just a free kill on the Arado, and he would be so far behind in tempo. But Flame Panzer on turn 3. Oh, we're going to see the new animation, right?
Oh.
Wow, everyone. So if you haven't seen that before, they added brand new visual effects to the Flame Panzer and to the Zippo as well. That just looks fantastic.
Right. Not fantastic options for Fenrir here. Not going to be able to deal with that Flame Panzer. May go for the Nebelwerfer and try to encourage CCMS to spend his credits to trade with it so he can get an easy clear with the Arado maybe.
I like that. I think you have to play Nebelwerfer on this turn. You don't want to get behind as far as what's on the board. And like you said, I like that you can hit the Flame Panzer for 1. If the Flame Panzer moves up trades, then you can finish it off with your Arado.
And that's an expensive play for CCMS, moving that up and trading.
Yeah, do you think he just plays the Panzer H here?
Maybe?
Like, does he really need to kill that flame or that Nebelwerfer on this turn? I don't know if he does.
I don't know. He might try to go wide, try to keep the momentum up. However, you know, a Nebelwerfer can be pretty scary if it's sticking around. So,
now, what's your take on Nebelwerfer versus the Westby? Which one do you think's better?
Oh, hands down, Nebelwerfer. You
think so?
Yeah, it affects the board, you know, as it comes down. Has pretty great synergy with Nashib. And in the Vesp, it you know, it reminds me of the Priest, the M7 Priest that USA gets.
It does.
And, you know, that card's not terrible, but it's not too exciting.
I do like the surprise play that you can get off of the West with like a SDKFC. Makes it a 4-3, kind of out of nowhere. You can take people by surprise, but looks like CCMS is going for the Panzer H. Gonna pick up an encirclement. I guess he's looking to encircle his Flame Panzer.
Yeah, maybe. Might try to get his pursuit off. Interesting to see pursuit. Honestly, have we seen pursuit yet? Coming from these decks so far in the top 16?
from my memory, not so much. But I think in this matchup, it's going to be pretty darn good. The ability to retreat a guard, the tempo you gain from that, plus being able to operate your units for -1, most of the time operating for 0, can just totally swing the advantage in your favor.
Oh.
Fenrir just pecking for 1 damage there.
Might try to start hitting face here. We know he does have that comment in hand, and German decks tend to really do lack any sort of healing. So a lot of that damage is going to stick.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a turn that you pursuit the Takasagi, you kill the 35T, and then you can move up Flame Panzer, and probably you could either hit face or kill the Arado. Opting to go for the... Okay, there we go. Looks like the video's catching up.
The Admiral Hipper coming out. Gonna make the Kriegsmarine from CCMS a little bit weaker later on. Fenrir. The chance to do more face damage here. Oh, hang on. This delay is messing with me.
Yeah,
I think we should. I
yeah,
think we
me
should
too.
just go on CCMS because we have a better signal from him. Yeah, let's just watch it there.
Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
It looks like the pursuit was played, and CCMS definitely getting a lot of value out of it. Kind of.
And you're right about the no healing with the German decks. I mean, look at the amount of damage CCMS just has in his hand. The Admiral Hipper is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. Plus Comet, if you hit basically 2 hits from the Comet, plus the Kriegsmarine is just lethal. That's 14 damage.
And another pursuit might be super scary. Fenrir going for face. Ooh, we're gonna see an encirclement and a pursuit. That's very, very brutal play coming out from CCMS. Has a lot of face damage.
9 damage. Gonna put Fenrir at 5. And then the Kriegsmarine is just gonna be lethal next turn.
Yeah.
There's no healing.
Fenrir, yeah, that's... Ooh. And Kriegsmarine, you know... never mind.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know, I don't think Fenrir has anything unless he has some way to dump his hand. Which he does not have the ability to do that.
And yeah, there's no wolf pack or anything. No way to discard.
Yeah, I wow.
He could try to hit. Okay, yep, that's game.
Wow.
CCMS taking a 2-0 over Fenrir in this first best of 3.
Yeah, that was a quick one. Man, CCMS really bringing it to the table.
I think one of the things we saw that game is how certain cards, like people were touching up on the difference between ladder and tournament play. Kriegsmarine is one of those cards which sees very, very little play on ladder, but is actually really quite strong in tournaments, and you saw it just then. Even if Fenrir had got like a Takasaki, some guards down and protected his HQ, or maybe root out and cleared board, he would have died anyway, just because Kriegsmarine is a pretty good card when it comes to tournament play. And I think it's one of the cards people need to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. I think the real MVP of that game was the Pursuits, 100%. That was a card I wasn't expecting to see, but I think does really well into a lot of the Japanese cards that we've seen being run this tournament. You know, like it absolutely it made that Takasagi worthless, and it just let CCMS put so much pressure on Fenrir's face.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
just a card you would never see on ladder. I mean, you don't see Pursuit on ladder. And you know, Japan having the best guards in the game, as Germany, you have to figure out some sort of way to remove them while also keeping the pressure on. And Pursuit is literally the perfect card in that situation.
I think coming into cards from other card games, bounce was one of the things I underestimated its power. But really, if you're an aggro deck, bounce can be one of the things which makes or breaks a game. It's something a lot of L640 players are familiar with, but in a lot of other aggressive decks, people don't run nearly as much bounce as they could do. And if you have sort of these half tracks, these pursuits, you can make your opponent spend 5 or 6 credits each turn just dropping guards, just for it to be completely nullified, and then you hit him in the face anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was a pretty explosive first match for us here. Our next match is going to be between Darkness and Yanju. They are getting set up. We have been tracking down the source of the issue, and it actually seems to be a hardware issue on one of the computers that were being used in China. So we are now taking that computer out of commission, the one that Fenrir was using. So we saw the signal from CCMS, it was better. So hopefully we can improve this quality on the Chinese signal over time here in the day. But the next match is going to be between Darkness and Yanju. But before we head on into that, I sat down with Gummi Kristjánsson, the creative director and one of the founders of 1939 Games, to talk a little bit about the future of cards and Breakthrough. So maybe we can roll that while we get things set up.
So Breakthrough, our upcoming expansion, is I think will be a really nice expansion. Of course, the main ambition we have with any expansion is to shake up the meta game and add something fresh to the game. Some core concepts we thought about when we started working on this expansion. We wanted to stick to adding some mechanics that were kind of tactical in its way, and were really inspired by some battlefield tactics and known war strategies from World War II. So that is very much where, for example, the pincer mechanic comes from. Another thing, of course, which we are branding the expansion a lot with, is the research feature, and that is something we've known for a very long time. We wanted to add to cards in some way or some fashion. I mean, science and technological breakthroughs, of course, played a big part in World War II, and we wanted to kind of add that into the game. And finally, of course, we are also adding a lot of cards that interact with existing themes and archetypes of decks, strengthen some of those and maybe weaken others and add some fun into the mix. So we are working on a lot of things we've talked about previously in AMAs and so on. We've been talking about progression systems, really big overhauls of the progression systems in cards, how players collect or build up their collection, and the path they choose within the game and goal setting. So that's something we are focusing on a lot on in the near future. The officer packs are essentially the kind of main idea with those is that it should be more fun and more exciting to open packs, and you should be getting more relevant cards out of each pack. So you would be getting less duplicates of standard cards and more of the good stuff. Mobile is we are constantly working on mobile and with several partners One thing I can share with you is that we've been doing really large-scale tests, mobile tests with a potential publisher in China, and those have been giving us really positive results. So of course there's a lot of challenges in regards to the UI and UX part when it comes to mobile. The constraints of the limited screen space, of course, is a major challenge, because we really want to kind of the game should feel the same whether you're playing it on your desktop device or mobile device, and we don't want to change it too much, but of course the UI especially needs to be adjusted a lot. Another big thing for mobile is just also the kind of rollout strategy and different markets and so on. There's a lot of noise, of course, in the mobile markets, and getting through can be more challenging than for PC. The future of cards is very bright, I think. We already have really great community. We have a really good game. We have our third expansion coming out. I think all the groundwork has been laid, but we still have so many aces up our sleeves, so to speak, that I think that we will be seeing a lot of success for cards in the coming year.
Yes, that was Guðmundur Kristjánsson, our creative director, talking a little bit about the future of cards. I absolutely cannot wait for the next 10 years of cards. I mean, absolute privilege to be able to wake up every day and work for you guys in the community, trying to deliver you the entertainment you deserve. But let's bring it back into the World Championship here, and let's talk about our upcoming match between Darkness and Yanju. Let's bring up the player profiles. Let's get to know these players. If we can bring up maybe Darkness first.
Yeah, Darkness, I think, definitely one of the fan favorites coming in here, as he is the only remaining European player that made it to the top 4. And I think that alone just gives him a lot of fans there. And I think what he's bringing here is some pretty interesting things that you're not seeing from a lot of other players.
Yeah, we'll get into that just as we get to know these players after we get to know these players a little bit better. Looking at his favorite card is the golden long tom. I really appreciate that. That's the kind of thing that sticks out for me. But let's now bring up Yanju's player profile as well, so we can see it, and then we'll go into interviews that we have with both of these players and get to know them a little bit better. Yanju there, he's been playing cards since just the beginning of 2020, right? Not even a year into the game. Favorite nation Britain, favorite card Burst of Fire, really likes that aggression. Just under 600 hours, and 31st is his best ladder result. I think we have, this is like the newcomer versus the veteran matchup here.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think the tournament experience is pretty darn valuable in these sort of settings. Just knowing how to act and how to stay calm, not even gameplay wise, but just mentality wise, is pretty darn important. However, these kind of new players can look at the game in a way which we don't look at the game when you've been playing it for a lot longer. You build up bad habits and these traditions where this is good and this is bad. And some of these are actually really, really incorrect and damaging towards your gameplay. And newer players can come in and completely destroy you because they've not built up these bad habits, which maybe more veterans and experienced players have built up over time.
Yeah, well, I think we're just not going to delay it, a whole lot more. I really want to get these interviews out of the way, just so we get to know these players a little bit better before we see them face off. So let's just roll both Darkness's interviews and Yanju's interviews back to back. Let's get to know these guys and then jump straight on into the second best of 3 here on this World Championship Grand Finals. Hi. My name is Ole, and I'm here with Darkness, one of our top 4 finalists in the World Championship and one of the most winningest tournament player in cards so far. But before we go into that, Darkness, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? What is your name, where are you from, and how old are you?
Thank you very much, Ollie. Well, My nickname is Darkness. My real name is Daniel, and I'm from Germany. I am 24 years old, and I'm playing card games since a very long time. I started as little child with an regularly set of cards playing Mau Mau. I don't know if you know it. It's a very simple game, just with the usual like poker cards. And when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I played this in the summer holiday a lot, challenging everyone at the whole camping place to play against me. And I was beating everyone, so after a few days, maybe 1 week, nobody was wanting to play anymore against me.
Well, I guess you're lucky that hasn't happened in Cards so far. If everybody just stopped playing against you, I think we would be in a lot of trouble.
Well, that's true. That's true.
So you started getting into it with kind of these traditional card games, but what was your first kind of card game? Was it Magic or was it Hearthstone or how did you get into these types of card games?
Well, I got a few cards, like printed cards of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, but I was never able to play for real because I missed a lot of cards and I had nobody to play against. My first real card game was Hearthstone. I started Hearthstone with the open beta, and I was playing this free-to-play completely. I was grinding 6 months the arena mode to collect enough cards to reach the legend rank for every month. But I quit playing Hearthstone after like 3 years because of my education. University, all the tests were getting serious, and I would spend like 5 hours a day grinding arena to get all of these cards, and with the business model of Hearthstone, I wasn't very successful completing my collection with this. This was the point when I stopped playing Hearthstone. Then I played Dota 2, semi-competitive for 2 or 3 years, and then I switched to Cards.
Awesome. So in Cards, what is your favorite nation and what is your kind of favorite play style?
Well, my favorite nation is favorite nation and playstyle are the meta decks. When I started Cards, I started Cards 1.5 years ago, and the meta was very control heavy. Like the best deck was Britain Soviet with a lot of guards and a lot of elite cards, because you were able to use elites from both nations.
Yeah.
And I figured this out after grinding 1 month of draft, collecting 3,000 resources, that this is the best deck right now, and I built these cards like Daylight Bombing when it wasn't nerfed yet. And I started playing competitive, and I was quite successful, hitting top 10 very soon. And since this time, I really enjoy playing Britain and playing Control.
Makes sense. What about your friends and family? What do they think about you being, one of the best players in the world in Cards or in any game? I mean, I know you stream a lot, with your girlfriend supporting you, but what do your friends and family think about it?
Well, my girlfriend is very supportive, that's for sure. And my brother is always cheering for me. because we played a lot of Dota together, and like an amateur esport team we founded. We both are very into games and playing competitive. My parents were most of the time, don't play too much PC, go out and play outside, go study, go work, I don't know. But recently, this actually changed because I finished my education. I was successful in my life. I got a job. I started making money, and I was playing over and over again. And I think this was the time they realized, this guy is, our son is playing a lot of computer games, but he's still successful. So this can't be too bad. And he's maybe not an addicted computer nerd junkie.
Yeah.
Maybe this is fine. And then the tournament started, like the open cards and the OCC, and I was calling them, telling them I do have a tournament. Well, they was they was used to that because I played a lot of Dota tournaments. But this time was different because I was actually winning money. And then I told them, yeah, I won the first prize. I got $500. And they were very surprised, but they were very happy for me. And since then, they are supportive as well and asking me if I'm having any more tournaments and if I'm successful, and they're cheering for me.
Wow, that's awesome to hear, and it's the kind of story we hear from a lot of kind of competitive players that make it. They got criticized when they were kind of learning the ropes, but once they got successful, the understanding came. So that's awesome to hear. Hello, everybody. My name is Olikrummi Steinarsson, and I am here with one of our top 4 finalists in the 2020 World Championship. It is Yanju. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing today?
你今天怎么样啊？
今天挺好的，今天练了挺多牌。
So first off, I really want to get to know you a little bit. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself? What is your name? Where are you from? How old are you? And how did you get into card games?
能否做一个简单自我介绍一下呢？比如说你真实的名字叫什么，然后你来自哪里，今年多大了，然后你是怎么开始接触到 Cards 这个游戏的？
我叫元素收集大师，然后那个来自中国长沙，湖南长沙，然后我现在应该是算20岁吧，然后我也忘记我为什么接触 Card 这个游戏了，但是就是我玩这个游戏的时候觉得挺好玩的。
能否告诉一下我们你的真名？
真名叫做刘成刚，然后成是宝盖头的成，刚是绞字旁的刚。
So when did you start playing cards?
可能
你是什么时候开始玩 Cards 的？
可能大概今年2、3月份吧。
So in cards, what is your favorite nation and what is your favorite play style? How do you like to play?
在 Cards 中，你最喜欢玩的是哪个国家？然后你最喜欢玩哪种风格？是快攻呢，还是断水，还是控制型呢？
可能偏向于玩英国和日本多一点，然后喜欢的风格可能是偏中速一点的卡组。
So, what is your favorite video game of all time?
你到目前为止最喜欢玩的电子游戏是哪个游戏？
玩的最久的应该就是《战舰世界》了，然后也还挺喜欢玩的。
Okay. Well, so what do your friends and what does your family think about you being one of the best in the world in cards and being a part of this top 4?
那么你现在已经成为了 Cards 的世锦赛的4强选手之一。那你的朋友和家人知道这件事以后有什么样的看法呢？
他们挺惊讶的，但是都挺为我感到高兴，因为他们说，他们之前就是我家里人，不是很喜欢我玩游戏，我相信每个人都是这样子。然后 但是我告诉他们我玩这个 Cards，然后进了全球4强，还有奖金，他们觉得挺惊讶，然后他们说玩游戏还能玩出钱来，就这种感觉。
Yanju and Darkness, I love these interviews. I love getting to know our players, and I love kind of hearing their backstories there. But we are basically ready to go on into the game. The players, I believe, are issuing the challenges. So what do you think we're going to see? Did I tell you the bans already? No, I didn't, right? So Yanju bans Britain, and Darkness bans Germany.
So Darkness is Britain deck, which has been banned then. This is a commando deck. And then Yanju also bring commandos. He's bringing Brit US commandos. So I'm excited to see the commandos popping off. I know they're your favorite archetype. And then did you say he banned Germany? Darkness did?
Yeah.
Which I believe is a Germany mid-range, leaving Yanju with his Soviet US tokens deck and his Japan Germany air deck. Very unique to him, running cards like Breakthrough and Burst of Fire with Admiral Yamato. And then Darkness being left with his Feigned Retreat deck, his which we've seen a lot of. He's playing a Soviet Germany kind of controlled mid-range deck. Very unique stuff in there. He's got like the T-3485. And then his third and final deck for this will be USA Ramp. The most weird card I've seen in there, which could potentially be interesting, is a Radar Alert in there.
Oh, I really like the Radar Alert after the changes. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a much stronger card than it used to be. You can just play it far more carefree, kind of. You don't have to worry about all these credits you're spending. And if your opponent drops like a 5 or 6k unit and you proc it, you can get these huge bombers and huge fighters from it.
You're a fan of Radar Alert, Blue, right? You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I love Radar Alert, and I love that many people don't really expect it still. I think people are still a little used to it not seeing any play after it was changed to be 2 credits. So yeah, like Bubbles is saying, a lot of the time they'll just drop a Panther Ray, and you'll have a 6/6 Spitfire. And so yeah, that's why I love the card, the surprise factor, and it's really putting the presence of mind on your opponent to play around that.
Yeah. Well, we're ready with the game, so let's get into it. It is Darkness versus Yanju here in the quarterfinals of this World Championship Grand Finals. Take it away, Blue, Blast, and Scout.
All right, Darkness looking like he's going with his Soviet German value deck. A little mid-range there. Yansu with his tokens deck. This could be an interesting matchup.
Wow, and I have to say, I love the new sound effects for the Cuban Cossacks.
Kind of a slow start for Yansu, I think, here. Only playing a card on turn 3. I mean, Cossacks isn't the worst thing, but you know, usually you expect like maybe reserves or some kind of early token cards, kind of like prepping the board early on. Darkness looking for an elite here. I'd say these aren't the best options Darkness could have got. He may go with the Tomahawk, may go with the Train. I feel like the Train could be really good in stopping a lot of that token aggro.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you can't really take the first rifles. It's a deliberate decision that Darkness is not playing first rifles because he's running Night Witches. And if the game goes long enough to where you're chaining Night Witches, you do not at all want those extra copies of first rifles to be clogging up your draws.
All right, Yansu starting to get some kind of board pressure out. I think the double Bloody Sickle is very good for Darkness here.
And that Tomahawk trades very well with that Katusha.
Absolutely, and empowers any larger infantry if it sticks. Yansu having to draw some cards there. I think I think his first few cards were definitely like AoE buff cards, because we saw he didn't really have anything for the first couple turns, which really makes me think he had a pretty unfortunate hand to start there.
Yeah, absolutely. Darkness going for the snap trade-off with that Katusha and cashing in on the +1/+1 for the 845th rifles. 3-4 is pretty formidable on that, especially going up against tokens. I mean, you could just get multiple kills with that same 3-4 infantry.
I think it's looking really good for Darkness right now, because Yanju playing a tokens deck, starting his turn 7 with an empty board, that is not where the position you want to be in with a tokens deck. You kind of want to get the ball rolling early, and it didn't seem like he was able to really get that going.
Although, to be fair, tokens does have a way of always sort of crawling back from the brink with just the sheer amount of men they can put on the board and just keep the infantry waves coming, right? So
very true.
This could he could still absolutely grind out Darkness, and he could just get off a big alliance with even 2 or 3 units on board, and that could even be enough to sneak in a win here.
I don't think Darkness has a super fantastic play here. At least not a super credit efficient play here with his, because he might go for the 83rd on the 4/3 damaged unit there, and probably not drop the Katusha, as he wouldn't be able to attack with it. Might go for Tractor Factories.
I like Tractor Factories. It's the most credit efficient play.
Or that's also a very good play.
Katusha's good as well. Yeah. I wonder if you roll the dice and try to go for the 50-50 on his Katusha, because it works out so well for you if you can get that extra damage.
I think it's too risky. I think when up against tokens, you need to keep that front line cleared. I think that is the big priority, because you never know when a unity is going to explode.
So you see the draw here for Darkness is a hammer. Bloody Sickle can clear out some of these 1/1s. Yeah, I like Naval Brigade there. Again, he's deciding just to give up on his Katusha. I think you still go for the enemy Katusha now, especially that you have a guard up. I mean, he's just playing very conservative right now.
Ooh. Not good for Yanju having to use that frontal assault for that. Ooh, okay. Never mind.
But now it's definitely going to be harder to remove that Katusha.
Nah, Darkness has a hammer. He's good. He ain't worried about it.
Yeah,
he could probably move that ambush to the front line. Hammer the Katusha.
Ooh.
Sky Baron's just a dead card, right, in this matchup?
Unless he uses it on his own unit. But yeah, definitely not what you want to do with your Sky Barons. Get rid
Comes
of that
out
ambush.
another Katusha.
Unlucky for Yanju. I don't think he's gotten a single double roll with his Katusha yet. Really unlucky there. Darkness wrestling control of that front line. Really good for him. Tokens absolutely 100% need to hold that front line, or else they cannot close out the game.
Ooh, here comes a nice unity of strength there, defensively. But floating 6 credits, I mean, his hand just must be...
Yeah, he's not getting the units that he needs.
Yeah, I think having to use that frontal assault to get 2 light infantry is definitely a tell of the sorry state of Yanju's hand at the moment.
I think Katusha may have been the best thing Darkness could have pulled with Parade.
Now, does he go for the enemy Katusha? Still does not. Just leaving the Katusha, not a care in the world.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, honestly, unless it gets buffed with the Alliance. It's the only way it could really become a huge threat, I think. I really think
When it comes to
focusing the infantry is the way to go.
the second frontal
Ooh.
assault, having to get units, things are not looking great. Even with Darkness having the 2 Sky Barons dead in hand, has a pretty commanding board presence.
No double roll again from Yanju. The Katusha is not
Oh.
doing him any favors.
Oh, that is just heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, the
Darkness.
double roll. Will he get the second double roll? He's debating it. Oh, moving into the front. Also a good play.
Siberian. Yeah, and I mean, Darkness is playing this match perfectly. The strategy you want to take as a control deck against tokens is just to eliminate every single infantry that they put out, so they don't hit that critical mass, and then play an alliance and have just an unkillable board. So just really expertly navigated by Darkness here. Wouldn't expect anything less.
Absolutely, and in the earlier stages kind of the World Championship, what we've seen though is that if at any point you're unable to deal with the constant onslaught of light infantry units, you end up in trouble. And I think, you know, Yanju here, he obviously doesn't, he's not finding the cards he needs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he just has not, you know, having to use frontal assault instead of a reserves is just, that is just a bad sign. And we've seen that twice.
He floated 12 credits last turn.
And there's the third frontal assault having to pull 2 infantry. And Darkness just has lethal on board. 7 and 5 is 13. Katusha is 14. And we see the surrender from Yanju. Game 1 goes to Darkness.
I think that's one of the risks you run with tokens is just there are so many big buff cards that you can end up with just a full hand of buffs and absolutely no units to play them on.
Yeah, I mean, that looked exactly like what Yanzu was dealing with there. I mean, we've seen, I believe we saw him bring tokens earlier on in the tournament, and you know, at that point in the tournament, they were absolutely unstoppable, right? They flooded the field, you know, support line, front line, it didn't matter. There were light infantry units absolutely everywhere, and you know, a single unity of strength buffing something up massively, and in the end, it proved too much to deal with. But now, not finding, we didn't see him play a single reserves, right?
I think it's somewhat unlucky though from Yanzu. He does have 4 reserves in the deck, and then 2 1271st rifles to give him 6 reserves, and then he's also got 3 nice surrenders. Having to use all those frontal assaults, the moment you pop a single frontal assault on tokens, you feel like you're in a rough spot. Having to pop 3, I think that was a super unlucky tokens game from him.
What I want to look at though here is that, you know, against let's say against a lesser player, right, than Darkness, what were the mistakes that could have been made, right? Like when you see the guy playing frontal assault, Darkness could have gotten greedy, right? He could have maybe been like, all right, I don't need to clear it. He apparently doesn't have anything in the hand, but he was ruthless there, right? He was like, I do not care if your draws are subpar. I'm getting rid of every single unit you put on that board and making sure you can't buff a single thing.
Yeah, I think the right play that Darkness was making there that maybe not a lot of people would have made was not worrying about the Katusha. He really did focus on prioritizing the infantry because he knew the infantry would be the strength of that deck, and he didn't take any gambles with it. He always went for the 1 HP target with the Katusha and just really focused on that infantry, and I think that was a very smart play by him.
Yeah, man, that's actually a really great point because, I mean, I'm that way, and I think probably most players are that, you know, if you see an artillery and you can kill it, you really want to get that thing out of the way immediately because it can deal damage without taking damage. But like you say, showing the presence of mind and understanding that in this matchup, you know, a 1/1, 0 op cost light infantry unit is more important to get rid of than that Katusha. And that feels kind of counterintuitive, but it just shows the level of play that we're at here.
I think one of the things which is very important in playing against tokens, is knowing when to play whack-a-mole. People often talk about how you have to whack-a-mole tokens all the time, and actually it's incorrect that you have to do it all the time. That you can get yourself into these scenarios where actually, if I no longer kill these tokens and just go for the face, I can end the game before they can do anything about it. But Darkness, they're identifying that, hey, if I just play whack-a-mole here and just kill every token that ever comes out, I'm just going to win the game through, sheer value.
I always play whack-a-mole. Doesn't matter. I mean, that is their kryptonite. Being able to eliminate the units while they're small is just the key to victory every single time against tokens. Darkness knows that. He knows the matchup really well. And yeah, I really like your point earlier, Scout. He didn't risk any of the gambles on the Katusha. Like me, I'm a gambler. I would have gone for that Katusha immediately. And I probably would have lost that coin flip. So really, really well done here today from Darkness.
Yeah, well, that's pretty interesting. They're working on just the final stuff on the signals from China. We're still having some technical issues there. We were able to get perfect signal here from Darkness, so at least some things are going our way. But now, as we go into game number 2 here between these guys, Darkness is not going to have his Soviet deck, right? So are we going to see Yanju bring the tokens again, thinking, you know what, there's no way that I can be that unlucky?
You feel like you're on 2 clocks. You're on this 1 clock from Jaguar just killing you. But you usually feel like if you go late game, you'll win. Not against his Feign Retreat deck. He'll just pop Feign Retreat, and before you know it, he'll have like 15 units on board.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the deck Darkness should bring.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bubbles. Feign Retreat is that X factor that can make Jagro go the distance against this field of control decks. I think that is the best possible choice. I don't think Yanju should play tokens again just because of the inconsistency we saw in his draws in the last game. I mean, at this stage, you can't really afford to have another draw like that. So I think the best option for him would, probably the Brit USA.
I think I'm gonna have to
tokens are somewhat different. These sort of much more slow burn tokens. I find slow burn decks somewhat weak to Jagro, and I think I'd favor Jagro personally in that matchup.
All right, well, we're going to swap to this hold screen real quick while they take care of some issues behind the scenes here. But we can keep talking. You just won't be blessed with our beautiful faces on screen for a little bit. So yeah, so basically we're restarting all of the technical components that are involved in getting the signals from China. We really do care about bringing the high quality production here. So that's what we're really trying to do. Obviously. Mayday, mayday! Well, you're under attack. We seem to have lost signal with the outside world. We're absolutely in the dark here. Sir, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to proceed? Oh, we're back? Oh, well. Hello, everybody. I guess we're back. Slight panic on my end here. Things were shaking. Things were going pretty crazy. Whew. See, I got my helmet on. Things are going good now. All right, wow, they're back. They are back. All right, guys, how are you doing? We're back, and apparently we have signals for both players now, so we're good to go.